Summer is right around the corner, and what better way to get ready than with this amazing beach snow globe tumbler? As always, I'll make sure to put everything I use today into the description box below so that way you guys can purchase those items if you would like to. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and let's wake up, prep these tumblers, and slay all day. Let's do this. Starting off with the tumbler that I'm going to be using today. This one today I purchased through the Stainless Depot company. I know there are other companies out there and I still have to give those a try, but this one I know for sure. This is the second time I've used this one, so I really like it. I like the thickness of the plastic. It comes, of course, with a straw. It comes with the plastic bumpers to seal up the bottom. It comes with two, just in case, I guess maybe one gets lost. I don't know. I like that it comes double wrapped in bubble wrap, and it also comes in this plastic sheeting, so it's nicely protected. I pretty much just put mine all back in the box if somebody purchases it, so that's kind of nice. But this is really nice and thick plastic, and you see on the bottom it already has a pre-drilled hole, so you don't have to worry about anything seeping out. You don't have to worry about doing all kinds of weird, glues and stuff. But it's a screw top lid, and it's a nice flat lid, so you could decorate the lid as well. And it also has a dip at the bottom, so that way you can coat everything with resin at the bottom to, again, completely seal everything in. So that is the tumbler that we'll be using. So now we are going to go ahead and move on to the liquid that's going to be inside. That's going to make our waves on the inside. We're going to take some distilled water. I just put mine up to a cup. I didn't even use all of it, but that's okay because I ended up doing something else with it. But I did up to a cup. And when you have the micas in your water, they're going to settle. And we don't want it to just be clear when it settles. So I've seen this really cool technique where you take alcohol inks. I'm just going to be using Mermaid by Tim Holtz. And you're going to go ahead and drop a few droplets into the water. And whenever that mica powder settles, the water will still stay blue. Now, I had two different types of alcohol inks. I just want to let you guys know that my other alcohol inks didn't work out properly in the water. It kind of clumped up, but the Tim Holtz worked in the water. So you might want to test it out a little bit before you give it a go, just to make sure your inks won't clump up in the water. Now, to give us that beautiful kind of wave look, we're going to be using mica powders. I have a teaspoon right here, and I'm just going to do a teaspoon at a time. And again, you just kind of add everything until you like the way it looks. So you don't want to add too much, just a little bit at a time, just like with our inks. I was adding a little bit at a time until I got the darkness of the blue that I liked. And now after you get your mica powders in there, you're just going to stir it up. And you're just going to kind of take a look at it and see if you like the movement of the mica powder. I think I ended up adding 2 teaspoons. Yep, it was 2 teaspoons to 1 cup of water. This is what I ended up doing. Now you want to go ahead and get your liquid into your tumbler. I ended up using one of my syringes that I use for rhinestoning because that's what I had in hand. But you could also buy yourself some pipettes if you want to. I'll put that kind of stuff down in the description to make it a little bit easier for you guys. I know some people use a few different things to get their liquid into the base, but just use what you have on hand, really. You don't need anything fancy to do this. Now, once I got down to once it is almost filled up, you want to go ahead and tip it so that way that bubble, there's that little air pocket. You just want to tip it so that way it's more towards the hole. And you just want to keep filling it until you press all that air out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it up straight. And I like to give it a little tap so that way more of that air comes out. And then I'll just add a bit more liquid, and then I'll actually take my syringe and kind of find that air bubble in there and finish sucking the air out of it if I need to. But you just want to fill it up as much as possible. I still like a bit of an air bubble in there, so like a small, maybe coin size or quarter size air bubble in there, just so that way we have that movement we like when we shake it up. But other than that, that's pretty much all we do to get our liquid in there. So you want to go ahead and wipe the bottom of your tumbler off really, really good. I used rubbing alcohol to wipe the bottom of mine off. You just want to make sure you remove any kind of particles, especially if you're using a different kind of liquid than I did. I just used water, but I wanted to make sure all that mica was removed. But if you're using something like glues with your water and stuff like that, you definitely want to make sure that's completely removed before you add your resin and your bumper on the bottom. I'm going to take a little bit of my UV resin and place it right around the hole that is there. And then we are going to go ahead and press our bumper into that bottom. And then we will go ahead and hit it up with our UV flashlight to cure it. I am pressing it down so that way it stays down. This was a little difficult to get in there, so you might need a little help with, I don't know. I used the back end of a brush to kind of help me press it down in there because it is a pretty tight fit. Now we're going to go ahead and jazz up the bottom before we move on to the rest of the tumbler. I'm going to use a little bit of coffee cake inside of some UV resin. Again, there's just a little bit of UV resin there. And I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit inside of that, and we're going to get that poured down into the bottom. So when doing up the bottoms of your tumblers like this, you want to make sure that you don't overfill it because then you'll have a wobbly bottom. So every layer that I do down here, because I am going to be adding some different things to it, you just want to make sure that you're doing thin layers at a time and just looking at it straight on, eye level with it, so that way it's not protruding out the bottom, so that way you don't get that wobble to it. Okay, so this is just a thin layer to start. I'm going to go ahead and get that down. And then with UV resin, you still want to hit it up with your torch to pop micro bubbles, and then you're going to go ahead and cure that with your UV flashlight. So now we are just going to take our imagination and we're just going to let it kind of flow a little bit. And we are going to decorate our bottoms with little bits of shell. Now this shell I happen to buy at Micas, but you could get it whenever you go on vacation. You can get little bits of shell to kind of remind you of the places that you've been. You can put that down there. Whatever you do, just make sure that it's not above the lip of that bottom. That's all we want to do. I also have little bits of mirrored glass that I'm going to put down here. As long as it's completely coated, it's completely fine. It's just going to add a little extra kind of shine to it. That's all. Now, I live near a beach that's the shark tooth capital, you know, so I've added shark's teeth to mine. You could add little starfish, all kinds of stuff. So just let your imagination flow and just kind of go with it. And I also added a little bit of my glitter called Bubbles. It really does look like bubbles when it's under epoxy. I absolutely love this glitter. It's one of my main go-tos, especially for summer type tumblers, so... And then I'm going to go ahead and cure that layer once more with my UV flashlight. And then when I go to top it off, I'm not going to fill it up completely because I am going to epoxy the tumbler fully anyways. So I'm only going to bring this up. It's not even above the lip. So you don't want to fill it all the way up. That's for sure. Because when we go to epoxy it, that'll finish the job for us. You just want to kind of fill everything in. That's all you want to do. You just want to finish up the job here. That's pretty much it. But we'll hit it up with our torch once more, and then we'll hit it up with our UV flashlight once more, and then we're ready to move on. Now, I said earlier I didn't use all of this. Look at that. Oh my gosh. I just love the way this movement is just gorgeous. But I didn't end up using all of this liquid, so I ended up making jars for my children to play with because it's very soothing. It is. I could look at this all day. It is very soothing to look at. So I made up some jars for the kids, and they had fun shaking those and watching the water twirl around. I think they call them calm jars. I think that's what they call them. Anyways, but that's what I ended up doing with mine. So I set mine off to the side to kind of show you guys what it looks like. So this is what it looks like. See the blue? It looks blue still, but then now the mica powder had settled at the top there, and now we're just going to give it a little shake, and look at that. So cool. I love this. So pretty. I want to make up more of these for sure. All right, I'm getting distracted here. Let's get back to business here. So I took a piece of painter's tape and I went right up at the top there. If you have the tumbler in hand, you'll see what I'm talking about. There's a seam line, and I just pretty much put my tape right at that seam line. Now I'm going to go ahead and take, I believe it was 220 grit sandpaper, and I'm going to go ahead and scuff up the surface of my tumbler. And because I'm fully coating mine, yes, I do the bottom as well. And then I'll go ahead and take a paper towel with a light misting of rubbing alcohol and just wipe all those particles off. So we're going to be doing a vertical beach look to this. So I want a strip of what will be the quote-unquote sand across the front. So I wanted mine about 3 inches in width. And I'm just going to use my soft measuring tape to help me get a line from the top to the bottom. So that way when I place my tape down, I know where to place it. So that way we can block off the area where we want our sand to be. And then I'm just going to take painter's tape and I'm going to place that right at the top where we made that dot and right at the bottom where we made that dot, so that way I know my lines are as straight as it can be for this tapered type tumbler. And I am also going to tape off the bottom a little bit as well because I don't want that sand look to go all the way around. So now we're going to go ahead and adhere down our glitter to our surface here. So I'm just going to use a glitter glue or Mod Podge to adhere the glitter. And then I will go ahead and place my glitter down. I'm just using the same thing that we used on the bottom, which is called Coffee Cake, and fully load that center end. I'll go ahead and remove the tape along the outsides, leaving that tape at the top because I still kind of need that. And then once that dries, we'll move on to the next step. Once dried, you're just going to sweep away any loose glitters that just didn't get adhered. And to really make sure that those glitters don't shift on me, I'm going to go ahead and seal my glitter down. I'm going to be using my liquid sealer today. You just place it down and you just kind of rub it around so that way it seals that glitter in so it doesn't shift on you. Or you could use your spray sealer, whichever you have on hand. But it was a bit icky out the day that I did this, so that's why I decided to use my liquid today. So it does look a bit foggy once you place it down, but it does dry clear. And then once that has dried, we'll move on again to the next step. So with this first coating of epoxy, we're going to go ahead and do our first set of waves. I have 20 milliliters of epoxy in my cup there. I'm going to go ahead and get the majority of that onto the surface of my tumbler here, making sure that I spread it out really well, making sure it's nice and even all the way around. And I'm going to save just a very tiny bit in the bottom of that cup so that way we can make those waves. To give my epoxy color, I'm going to go ahead and use acrylic paint today, but you could use alcohol inks or dyes, whatever you have on hand. But this is going to give us that kind of bubbly breaking of the waves look that we know. So now, as you see, I'm going a bit away from the shoreline because it can overpower the shoreline and I don't want it too much onto the glitter itself. I want it more around the back to kind of give that illusion because we're going to come through and sculpt our own 3D looking waves across the front. But you also don't want to add too much of this around the back so that way we can still see the pretty movement of the liquid underneath. Now to move our waves around, I got my Conair still, guys. I've been using this, 6 years now? Still working fabulous. I'm going to go ahead and put this on high, and I'm going to start shifting these waves around. So you can see them kind of moving. I just kind of take it and blow it until everything kind of goes back, and it starts to give that bubbly wave break look. I think the biggest pointer I can give you guys is you don't want to overwork your waves. You definitely want to get them pushed around and moving and flowing. And I pretty much, after I get that done, is when I'll stop. So I'm almost ready to stop here. As you can see, I'm really pushing it. I like the way that looks. I like the way this looks. And then I'm pretty much going to stop about there with it. Because if you work too much with your hot air blowing on your epoxy, it could start to want to make fish eyes in your epoxy because it's curing too fast and it's not having enough time to cure properly. So if it cures too fast, it'll make those fish eye marks as well. So don't play around with the heat too much on it, okay? Just a little bit and there you go. So I wanted mine filled in just a tad more around the shoreline. I waited about 10 minutes just to make sure everything was shifted the way I want it to. And because I don't want to touch anything around the back. I like that just fine, but I wanted just a tad more along the shoreline. So I did come through with a little bit more of that white. And I just focused when I did my blow dryer right on those two lines that we did on the shore and on the bottom. I did a little bit on the bottom as well. And that's it. That's how I did my first set of waves. Right after I am done doing my waves, I will go ahead and remove the tape around the top so that way we don't accidentally epoxy that to our tumbler. We definitely don't want to do that, so make sure you remove your tape. I'm going to go ahead and let that cure, and then we're ready to move on to our next step. We are back and she is cured. She's looking cute. And honestly, you guys could leave it just like this after we get the quote on and stuff, or however you guys want to decorate it. You know, it's good like this. You don't have to do the 3D waves if you don't want to. You know, it's completely up to you guys. So the quote that I'm using comes exactly like this. All you have to do is make an offset if you'd like to. This is the offset. I'm going to be using a matte gold for that. And then over top for the regular lettering is just going to be a white vinyl. And if you're wondering why I layered it in that fashion, or I did it on the tumbler versus on the table, I just feel more comfortable that way, and it always comes out nice every time. So, you know, when I first came up with this concept for the vertical sculpted beach look, I really scrounged around and I tried my hand at a couple different things, but I honestly, guys, really enjoy the glitter snow look for this. I've seen lots of people come up with so many different ideas and I absolutely love it. I love how you guys came up with puffy paints to use and all kinds of stuff, but for me, it really is the glitter snow. So I'm going to go ahead, I have a flat brush and I have my glitter snow, and I'm just going to kind of visualize the concept that I want to do, because I'm going to do like two sets of waves on this. I'm going to do one breaking up onto the shoreline and then one a little bit further back. And all I want to do is just take a dollop of that glitter snow. You want to pile it up pretty good right at the tip of my brush there. There we go. And then we are just going to make a C shape right up onto the shoreline. I'm going to go pretty deep into my shoreline this time. I want it pretty much touching my letters as I go. I really want this to be visible. So I'm just going to take that little bit of glitter snow and start squishing it down again in that kind of elongated C shape. And as I go, I pick up a bit more of the glitter snow so that way it's nice and visible up at the tip or the end of the wave. And after I get that all piled on really nicely, I'm going to bring it down to where the water line is. I'm just going to take my brush and very gently fan everything back, or feather it back, and you got that look of that wave started right there. Now, as you see here, I'm coming back through and I'm making the end or that break a bit thicker, and that's completely fine. You keep going. You know, if you're looking at it and you're like, that could use a little bit more, go ahead and put a little bit more on, because it does dry really fast. But if you don't like it, you can wipe it away really quick before it does dry. But if you don't like it, just wipe it away, okay? And keep on going. So I'm going to let you guys watch me work for a little bit, but I am going to switch it to the opposite side. I already finished this side, but my opposite side, I got a little bit up closer look for you. So I'm going to show that side for you guys. I'm going to let you just kind of watch me work. So it took me about 15-20 minutes per side, so that's not too bad for making sculpted waves. And I was being a bit fussy with the placement and everything, because, you know, I want it to look just right, so. But after I get that side done, I'm going to go ahead and flip it because the other side is nice and dry now, and I'm going to do another set of waves right underneath this set. So I'm just going to come right underneath, and again, just do it exactly like we did the first set, making that elongated C shape and just feathering everything back and kind of filling in here and there extra little places if I wanted to, just to kind of give it more of that look here and there. And of course, I will come through and tie the bottom into it as well, adding 2 waves on the bottom, just making that fluid look go all the way around. Now we're going to go ahead and set that off to the side to dry fully, so that way we can go ahead and apply our final coats of epoxy over top. So into my final coats of epoxy, I wanted the back to kind of have that sparkle to it, that water have that sparkle to it. So I'm going to add a little bit of sparkle dust and teal. A little tiny bit goes a very long ways, so a little bit will do it. Okay, you want to stir that up really good. And every coat of epoxy, you want to make sure that you tape it up really good, so that way you don't get that epoxy in places you don't want it to. You're going to go ahead and give it final 2 finishing coats of epoxy, making sure you don't forget to pull that tape right after you apply that epoxy, and she is good to go. Whether you take this design and duplicate it as is, or you take it and let it inspire you to create something that is completely your own, I hope that you guys enjoyed this tutorial today. Again, if you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time.